Before you assume she lost interest, pause for a moment and listen carefully. Because what I'm about to say is not something most men hear, especially after 60, and yet it quietly shapes almost every connection you experience. You see, it's easy to believe that her silence means she's no longer interested, that her distance means you did something wrong, or worse, that at this stage in life, attraction simply fades. But the truth is deeper than that, quieter than that, and far more human. Because after 60, a woman doesn't lose interest the way you think. She withdraws when something inside her no longer feels right, not unsafe in a dramatic way, but emotionally unsettled in a way she cannot explain. And most men miss this, not because they don't care, but because they're looking in the wrong direction. They look at what they said, what they did, how often they called, but what she feels lives beneath all of that. There was a man named Yusuf, 71, a good man by every standard, respectful, consistent, the kind of man who believed showing effort was enough. He met a woman named Salma, warm, thoughtful, with a quiet smile that didn't come easily but meant something when it did. In the beginning, everything felt easy. Their conversations flowed. They shared stories of their past, laughed at small things, even sat in silence without discomfort. And Yusuf believed, quietly, that something meaningful was growing. But then, slowly, something changed, not suddenly, not dramatically, just small shifts. Her replies became shorter, her tone softer but distant. The warmth was still there, but it felt farther away, and Yusuf did what most men do. He tried harder, he called more, asked more questions, tried to fix something he couldn't see, until one evening, after a long pause in their conversation, Salma said something simple, but it carried weight. She said, "I don't feel the same calm anymore," and that confused him, because in his mind, he had done more, not less. But that was the moment he realized. It was never about effort, it was about feeling. You see, after 60, a woman is not searching for excitement. She is not chasing perfection. She is not even looking for someone to impress her. She is looking for emotional steadiness, a kind of presence that feels natural, not forced. And when that changes, even slightly, she feels it immediately, sometimes before you even notice anything is wrong. Because what many men don't understand is this: when you try too hard, you don't come closer. You create pressure, not loud pressure, but a quiet emotional weight, where she starts to feel like she has to respond, has to match your energy, has to give something back. And at this stage in life, she doesn't want to feel that. She wants something effortless, something that doesn't demand, only exists. And when that ease disappears, she doesn't argue, she doesn't explain, she simply steps back, not to punish you, but to protect her peace. And that's the real reason she seems to lose interest. It's not that she stopped liking you, it's that something stopped feeling right inside her. And she chose silence over confusion, because after everything she has lived through, she no longer fights for connections that don't feel naturally right. She simply lets them fade. And here is where it becomes even more important, because many men at this stage carry something heavy, something they rarely admit: the fear of being forgotten, of becoming invisible, of no longer being desired the way they once were. And when they sense distance, they react, not from confidence, but from that quiet fear. They try to hold on tighter, speak more, prove more, without realizing that this is exactly what creates the distance. Because attraction after 60 is not built on effort. It is built on emotional balance, a calm presence, a grounded energy that says, "I am here, but I am not trying to take anything from you." And that is what makes a woman stay. Not because she has to, but because she wants to. Because being around you feels easy, not heavy. There was another moment Yusuf later understood. He remembered the early days with Salma, when he wasn't trying to impress her, when he wasn't overthinking, when he simply spoke, listened, and allowed silence to exist. That was when she felt closest to him, not when he tried more, but when he simply was, and that realization changed something inside him. He said quietly, "I thought she needed more from me, but she only needed me to be at ease." And that is the truth most men discover too late. She didn't lose interest because you weren't enough. She stepped back because something stopped feeling natural. And when something doesn't feel natural after 60, people don't force it anymore. They release it because peace matters more than possibility. And here is something even deeper. A woman at this stage doesn't measure you by how much you give. She feels you through how you make her feel when nothing is happening, when there is no effort, no performance, no trying, just presence. If that presence feels calm, she stays. If it feels heavy, she slowly leaves. And she may not even explain why, because she herself only feels it. She doesn't analyze it. She doesn't break it down. She simply trusts it. And this is where your power truly lies. Not in chasing her attention, not in trying to bring back what was, but in returning to your natural state, the version of you that is not trying to prove anything, because that version of you is the one she was drawn to in the beginning, and whether she returns or not. This understanding changes how every future connection feels, because now you no longer act from fear, you move from quiet confidence, and that is something a woman feels immediately. Not through your words, but through your presence, and presence, after 60, is everything. So if she has become distant, don't rush to fix it. Don't chase what feels like it's slipping away. Instead, step back into stillness, into ease, into yourself, because sometimes the moment you stop trying to hold on is the moment everything becomes clear. And whether she comes closer again or continues to drift, you will no longer feel lost, because now you understand something most men never do. She didn't just lose interest, something inside her changed. And the real question is not how to bring her back, but how to remain the kind of man whose presence never feels like pressure, only peace. And when you become that, you don't need to chase connection anymore. It finds you, quietly, naturally, and stays. And even after you understand this, there is still a quieter layer most men never reach. Because what pushes her away is not always what you do. Sometimes it's what she no longer feels within herself when she is around you. And this is where things become more delicate, more human, and more honest. Because after 60, a woman is not just responding to you. She is responding to how she experiences herself in your presence, whether she feels light or heavy, whether she feels seen or slowly fading. There was a man named Kareem, 70, calm by nature, thoughtful in his words. He met a woman named Nayla, who had lived a life full of responsibility, raising children, carrying burdens, always being strong for others. And when they first met, something softened inside her. She spoke more freely, smiled without thinking, even laughed in a way she hadn't in years. And Kareem believed this meant everything was right. But slowly, something changed again, not in him, but in her. She became quieter, more reserved, as if she was pulling something back, and Kareem couldn't understand it, because he was still the same man, still kind, still present, until one day, in a rare moment of honesty, Nayla said something that revealed everything. She said, "When I'm with you, I don't feel as open as I did before, and I don't know why." And that is the part most men never see. Because sometimes, a woman doesn't step away because of something obvious. She steps away because the emotional space between you no longer allows her to feel like herself. And when that happens, she doesn't try to fix it. She simply becomes distant, not out of rejection, but out of quiet self-protection. Because at this stage in life, she no longer negotiates with feelings that confuse her. She listens to them, even when they don't make sense. And what many men don't admit is this: when they sense that shift, they become more careful, more controlled. They start choosing their words, trying to avoid mistakes, trying to maintain what once felt natural. But in doing so, they lose the very thing that created the connection, their authenticity. Because now, instead of being present, they are performing, gently, subtly, but enough for her to feel it. And when she feels that, something inside her closes, not completely, but enough to create distance. And this is where the real truth lives. She didn't lose interest in you. She lost connection with the feeling she had when she was with you. And that feeling is everything. Because after 60, attraction is not built on excitement. It is built on emotional experience, how she feels in your silence, in your presence, in the way you exist without trying to shape the moment. And if that experience changes, even slightly, she feels it deeply and begins to withdraw. And there is another truth, even quieter, even harder to accept. Sometimes she doesn't move closer because she senses that you need something from her, not openly, not intentionally, but emotionally, a need for reassurance, for attention, for consistency. And while that is human, it creates a subtle pressure, a weight she cannot carry anymore because she has spent most of her life carrying others. And now she wants something different, something lighter, something that doesn't ask her to fill a space, but simply invites her to exist within it. There was a moment Kareem later reflected on. He realized that in the beginning, he wasn't seeking anything from Nayla. He was simply enjoying her presence. But over time, without noticing, he began to look for signs, signs that she cared, signs that she was still there, and those silent expectations changed his energy, not dramatically, but enough for her to feel it. And once that feeling entered the space between them, she slowly stepped back, not because she stopped caring, but because something no longer felt free. And that is the hidden reason so many connections fade after 60. Not because of lack of attraction, but because of the loss of emotional freedom. The moment a connection begins to feel like something that needs to be maintained, protected, or held together, it stops feeling natural. And when it stops feeling natural, it begins to disappear, quietly, without conflict, without explanation, just distance. And here is where everything becomes clear. You cannot bring someone closer by holding tighter. You can only invite closeness by releasing control, by returning to a state where you are not trying to shape the outcome, not trying to secure the connection, but simply allowing it to exist. Because the most attractive thing a man can carry after 60 is not effort, not perfection, but ease, a grounded presence that says without words, I am complete as I am, and you are free to be as you are. And when a woman feels that, she doesn't feel pressure. She feels peace. And peace is what she chooses now, over everything else, over excitement, over uncertainty, over emotional complexity, because she has lived long enough to understand that peace is rare, and when she finds it, she stays. But when she loses it, she leaves, even if she cannot explain why. So if you are wondering why she became distant, don't search only in your actions. Look deeper, into the emotional space you created together, because that is where the answer lives. Not in what was said, but in what was felt. And if you truly understand this, something changes inside you. You stop chasing clarity from her and start creating clarity within yourself. You stop asking, why did she pull away? And begin asking, what did it feel like to be with me? And in that question, you find your power again, not to control the outcome, but to transform your presence into something that doesn't need to hold on because it no longer fears being let go. And when you reach that place, something quiet happens. You no longer feel the urgency to fix what is fading because you understand that what is meant to stay will only stay in a space where it is free, and what is not will leave, no matter how tightly you try to hold it. And in that acceptance, there is a kind of strength, a calm, steady strength that doesn't chase, doesn't force, doesn't question its worth. It simply remains. And that is the kind of presence that changes everything, not just for her, but for you. Because now, whether she returns or not, you are no longer reacting from fear. You are standing in something deeper, something quieter, something unshakable. And from that place, connection is no longer something you try to keep. It becomes something that naturally finds you. And when it does, it won't feel uncertain. It won't feel fragile. It will feel easy, steady, and real, the way it was always meant to feel. And when you begin to see all of this clearly, something inside you becomes quieter, not weaker, but more certain. Because the deepest truth is this: sometimes she doesn't come back, not because you were not enough, and not because the connection meant nothing, but because at this stage in life, people choose alignment over attachment. And that is a difficult truth for many men to accept, especially when the connection felt real. Because after 60, you don't form connections easily. And when you do, they carry weight, they carry meaning, They touch something deeper than surface attraction. And when that connection starts to fade, it doesn't just feel like distance. It feels like loss, not loud, but quiet. The kind that sits with you in the evening, when everything slows down, and your thoughts begin to speak. There was a man named Rahim, 73, strong in appearance, composed in the way he carried himself. But inside, he had experienced more endings than he ever spoke about. When he met Nayla, he didn't expect anything. He wasn't searching. He had already made peace with being alone, but something about her presence felt familiar. Not exciting, not overwhelming, just right. They spoke gently, shared small moments, sometimes even sat without speaking at all, and in those quiet spaces, Rahim felt something he had not felt in years. Not desire, not urgency, but comfort. The kind that doesn't ask questions, just exists, and for a while, that was enough. But as time passed, something shifted, not dramatically, just slightly. Her energy became distant, her responses softer, less engaged, and Rahim felt it, not with panic, but with awareness, because unlike before, he did not rush to fix it. He did not chase the change. He simply observed, and one day, as they sat together in a long silence, she looked at him and said, "You are a good man, but something doesn't feel the same anymore." And then she smiled, not coldly, but with a kind of honesty that only comes after a lifetime of understanding emotions. And in that moment, Rahim felt the truth, not in her words, but in her feeling. And for the first time, he did not resist it. He did not question it. He did not try to bring back what once was. Instead, he nodded gently and said something that surprised even him. "I understand." And later, when he reflected on that moment, he said quietly, "I realized I wasn't losing her. I was just no longer part of what she needed." And that realization did not break him. It freed him because he finally understood something most men spend years fighting, that not every connection is meant to stay, even if it was real, even if it mattered, even if it felt right at one point. Because people change, feelings shift, and after 60, no one forces what no longer flows. They simply honor what was and release what is no longer aligned. And that is where your true strength begins, not in holding on, but in letting go without losing yourself. Because when you understand this, rejection no longer feels like failure. Distance no longer feels like confusion. It becomes clarity, quiet, but powerful clarity. That tells you, this was meaningful, but it is no longer mine to hold. And when you reach that place, something changes in how you move forward. You stop chasing reassurance. You stop trying to secure connection through effort, and instead, you become the kind of man whose presence is complete on its own. Not closed, not distant, but whole. And that wholeness is what creates the deepest kind of attraction, not the kind that pulls someone in quickly, but the kind that makes them stay because they feel no pressure, no expectation, only peace. And that is what a woman after 60 is truly searching for. Not perfection, not performance, but a presence where she can rest, where she can feel without explaining, where she can be without adjusting. And if that presence is there, she stays naturally. And if it is not, she leaves quietly. And neither of those outcomes define your worth. They simply reflect alignment. And when you begin to live with that understanding, you stop asking, why did she lose interest? And you start seeing something deeper. That interest was never something to hold on to. It was something that existed as long as the feeling remained true. And when that feeling changed, the connection followed. Not as a failure, but as a natural ending. And the moment you accept that, fully, calmly, without resistance, is the moment you become free. Free from chasing, free from overthinking, free from trying to control something that was never meant to be controlled. And in that freedom, you return to yourself, steady, grounded, and at peace. And from that place, something unexpected happens. You don't look for connection the same way anymore. And somehow, that is when the right kind of connection begins to find you. Not loudly, not suddenly, but quietly, in a way that feels natural, effortless, and real. And when it does, you will recognize it, not by intensity, but by ease. Because now you understand what truly makes someone stay and what quietly makes them leave. And most importantly, you understand how to remain yourself in both. And now, as you sit with all of this, maybe in a quiet moment, maybe thinking about someone or something that once felt close, just remember this. Not every connection is meant to last, but every connection teaches you something about yourself, something deeper, something more honest. And at this stage in life, that understanding is more valuable than holding on to anything that no longer feels right. Because love after 60 is not about chasing. It's not about proving. It's about recognizing what feels peaceful, what feels natural, what feels true, and having the strength to stay with that or walk away from what doesn't without losing your sense of self. And if there is one thing to take from all of this, let it be this. You don't need to become more to be valued. You only need to return to who you are when you are calm, when you are steady, when you are not trying to be anything for anyone. Because that version of you is enough. It always was and always will be. So whether someone stays or quietly walks away, you remain grounded, you remain whole, and you move forward, not with fear, but with quiet understanding. And if this message spoke to you in any way, if even one line felt like it understood something inside you, take a moment to gently like this video, share it with someone who may need to hear it, and subscribe so we can continue having these quiet conversations together. Thank you, truly, for your time, for your presence, and for allowing these words to sit with you. Until next time, stay steady, stay true, and take care of yourself.